All right, now we're going to get into acupuncture and dreams. So here we're going to shift from just focusing on insomnia to also working on weaving in prescriptions to go with people's dreams. So dreaming is a sophisticated cognitive activity, and it starts to develop as we age. And with that, of course, comes the opportunity for some disruptions to show up too, since it follows that now we have more life events to process. And physical ailments can, of course, be revealed in dreams as well. And here I want to look at acupuncture as both a means to opening the portal of dreaming and as a therapeutic mechanism for mirroring dream interpretation and subsequently treating with acupuncture. And I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. I had a patient with terminal breast cancer, and she had a reoccurring dream about 4 horses. So I used the master tongue set of points called 4 horses. And that's a very literal part, but there's the added insight that these points are actually very good for breast tissues. So kind of like with herbal medicine, where a plant's growing location or its morphology can give us clues about its function, the doctrine of similarities can be extended to this dream acupuncture work as well. So we know that in general, acupuncture can increase the content of serotonin and aminobutyric acid and reduce glutamate levels. And all of these substances improve the function of the central inhibition and ultimately can help people sleep, which is obviously the first step to dreaming. And if we go more into Chinese medicine based on the Ling Shu, we can say that Wei Qi circulates on the surface during the day, like we've talked about, and enters through kidney 6 at night to circulate 25 times through all of the internal organs. And in the morning, it emerges again at UB1 to open our eyes or wake us up. So here we have a relationship between the yin chao mai and the yang chao mai. So kidney 6 and UB1 can be the first points we start to think of for regulating our sleep-wake cycle. And the counterpart to the Wei Qi is the Yin Qi, right? The deep reserves that anchor our blood and nourish our ability to relax. So for this Yin Qi, there's general points like Anmian or peaceful sleep. And let's actually really look at the characters in this point for a minute. An is quiet or calm. And Mian is composed of the radical for I and a radical for community. So we can think of maybe looking inwards at all the parts that make up our inner community, our organs, our thoughts, our relationships to ourselves, and how this point on Mian may provide a peaceful place, help stimulate or not stimulate, a place to reside in ourselves amidst all of the commotion, or we could just say nourish the yin qi. So there's also a whole host of points that engage the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, which we talked about before as interpreting in Chinese medicine as the connection between the brain or mind and heart and the kidneys, the HPA axis, another regulatory system. So if we categorize these points a bit, it could look like this, and we'll put the heart with the brain and the mind, but we'll actually make it its own category here. So here we have brain and mind and points like GB20, Du20, and Yin Tang, and the heart, where we could include Ren 17 and Heart 7, and the adrenals and the kidneys, where we could engage UB23, kidney 7, kidney 1, and so on. So you can create an HPA acupuncture prescription drawing on these categories. And if we veer off from these pattern-based points a little bit, we often encounter the concept of heaven, human, and earth in Chinese medicine, and 3 points that can represent this distribution for balancing the whole person or the as above, so below thing would be stomach 21. So even though this point isn't located on the upper body, it's indicated for insomnia, and I like to think of its name, beam gate. Even though I think it actually refers to a beam like in a house, I think of it more as a moonbeam. And regardless of my errant interpretation, it clears the type of obstruction that can lead to insomnia. So in a way, it is holding up our house. And stomach 25, the next the next point I want to look at is called celestial axis, because the area above it is ruled by celestial chi, and the area below is ruled by earthly chi. So this point is thought to also represent the central star in the Little Dipper, with the other 6 stars representing the upper and lower chi sets. So this is how you can start to create constellation acupuncture on the body. Okay, and the third point in this upper-lower idea is spleen 8, or Earth's crux. And that's pretty explanatory as to why it's the lower or Earth point. And since we're talking about mingling acupuncture prescriptions with the stars, let's look at some other celestial-based points. And here I'll just list a few points that have to do with that, and you can get really creative with mapping star maps or drawing on ideas of inner navigation, etc., that are of course also relevant for someone's case. So just based on celestial names, we already talked about stomach 25 or celestial pivot, and there's lung 3 or celestial storehouse. And a lot of people shy away from using stomach 9 because of its location, but one name for it is celestial fivefold confluence, because it receives the chi of the 5 organs. And in our more commonly used name, it's called Ren Ying. And we see the character Ren for person. And if you just add a line on top of Ren like this, we get the character for heaven. And that's how closely the concepts are related. And we could think of that adding a head to the body of Ren as describing the direction we're working with herbs and acupuncture to help the head or mind reside a bit more in the heavens, especially during the imaginative open space of this nighttime. And then we see Ying, which means to predict, or we could say create prognosis. So even if you don't want to needle this point, it's a great area to palpate for the strength and quality of the pulse there. And a point in an entirely different category that I think is kind of underused is stomach 33. It doesn't have a celestial name, it's called Yin Market. But I like this idea of shopping in your deep reserves to bring something home. And this is the point found at the place your thighs right above your knee would touch if you were kneeling and bowing in prayer. And the original character actually referenced protective prayer pads that someone would wear here. And I like to use this point as a guiding intention for people to become at peace and at rest with their sleep. And I'll give you here one of my acupuncture mappings, combining some of the principles we've talked about so far. So points are selected based on names, energetics, combined with empirical function for sleeping and dreaming. And I insert the points in the order I'll give them to you in order to best encourage the process of dreaming to well up from someone being rooted and nourished. So starting at the ankles, kidney 6, the master point of the yin Chao Mai, and UB62, the master point of the yang Chao Mai. Then liver 5, the Luo point, where the paired yin-yang channels connect. Then further guiding these points' actions to the cinnabar field of Ren 4, and taking a moment to allow all the chi to pool, and then inserting GB24, representing the cycles of the sun and the moon, and it has an interior-exterior relationship with the liver, so helping to direct the liver yin and all of our energy towards sleep. Then I like to use Heart 5, the Luo point, that loosely means returning to one's village, and I use it to help people return home, home being the heart, And as the low point, it connects to the small intestine. So facilitating that processing and separation of what you need and don't need in your body to clear your mind for sleeping and dreaming. And heart 5 regulates rhythm, right? Usually we use this in a literal sense of arrhythmia, but here I use it in the sense of the circadian rhythms that stem from a peaceful spirit. And then UB7, which we talked about, and then do 20, used here like the North Star, our inner guide. And besides the individual functions, when used all together, this point prescription helps really boost the yin qi to invite the wei qi and shen to settle in at night and freely circulate. So we could say that this is a prescription for REM sleep. So hopefully this will start to help you get creative by seeing what you think matches up well with people's dreams. And I'll sprinkle a bunch more points in the following herb-based section too.